Have you ever looked at a six-figure paycheck and wondered, why do I still feel so empty? I used to live the so-called American dream, a director-level position at a tech company in Chicago, an office on the 23rd floor of a glass building, a high salary, and a retirement plan that involved a house in Florida. From the outside, I looked like the picture of success. But inside, I was withering a little more each day. 55 years old. 30 years of non-stop work. Every morning I drove my new SUV to the office, feeling the weight settle in my chest. I kept asking myself, am I living someone else's life, just for the money? There's a saying Americans love. Don't confuse making a living with making a life. And that's exactly what I had been doing for years. Until one day I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was a crisp autumn morning. Leaves had fallen across the front steps. I made my coffee just like I always did. But this time I didn't rush to open my laptop. I just sat there watching the sunlight stream through the kitchen window. And in that quiet moment, a single question rose up in me. If today were my last day alive, what would I regret? The answer came instantly. I wouldn't regret missing a KPI meeting. I would regret never painting that picture I always dreamed of. I would regret never opening a tiny cafe the way I once imagined. I would regret spending so many years accumulating money, but never using it to nourish my soul. My name is Linda Harper. I'm 55 years old and I live in a quiet suburb west of Chicago. I'm a mid-level executive at a healthcare tech company. What people like to call a stable, respectable, well-paying job. I earn close to $180,000 a year. I have a house, a 401k, a luxury car, a financial profile that makes banks smile. I used to believe I was on the right path. College friends would message me every now and then. You're doing amazing, Linda. Living the dream. And like most people, I'd smile and nod, though deep down I knew something wasn't right. I've been living alone since my divorce at 49. My daughter is grown now, studying out in Denver. We FaceTime every Sunday. My two-story house is fully furnished, but it feels hollow. Every night after shutting my work laptop at 8 p.m., I sit quietly by the window, sketching aimlessly in an old notebook. A habit from my teenage years I never dared to pursue seriously. I have everything except real joy. My work feels more and more mechanical: meetings, emails, growth strategies, HR management. I'm good at it, sure. But my heart isn't in it anymore. Every workday feels like slipping on a blazer that doesn't fit. Neat, professional, but stiff and misaligned with who I really am. Some nights I scroll through Pinterest, looking at watercolor paintings, cozy cafe designs in Vermont, or blogs by people who started over at 50. My heart beats a little faster, then fades again as I whisper to myself, that's just a dream, Linda. You're not young anymore. But some part of me, a quiet, smoldering ember, never quite died out. Each morning I woke up with a heavy feeling. Not from exhaustion, but from the lack of meaning in what I did. I function like a machine, managing crises, attending meetings, answering emails at midnight. People called me dependable, a pillar, a model employee. But inside I was quietly falling apart. I hadn't seen my daughter in 7 months. Each time we talked, I masked my weariness with a practiced smile. I'm doing fine, sweetheart. Work's good. Just busy. But the truth was, I hadn't been fine for a long time. What scared me most wasn't doing this for 10 more years. It was retiring with a full bank account, but no time left to truly live. I used to picture myself retiring in Florida, reading by the pool. But the voice inside me kept getting louder. Linda, if you keep living like this, who will you even be by the time you retire? I had enough money to live comfortably. But I wasn't living, I was just surviving. I realized I'd sacrificed too much in pursuit of success. My creativity, my freedom, my connections, even my sense of self-worth. And when I really looked back, the most terrifying part wasn't losing my job. It was losing myself inside of it. One night, I sat in the kitchen with a glass of wine, staring at the unfinished sketches on a scrap of paper. My hand was trembling, not from the alcohol, but because I had forgotten how deeply I once loved this. And I knew, if I didn't make a change now, I might never get the chance again. I was never bankrupt. I didn't rack up credit card debt or live beyond my means. But here's another truth, quieter, more dangerous. I used money as a way to avoid living. Every weekend I drive to high-end boutiques just to buy a silk scarf, a scented candle, or crystal wine glasses I knew I'd never use. I booked spa days, dined at fancy restaurants, bought treat-yourself items, not because I needed them but because they were the only things that made me feel alive. They call it comfort spending, buying to soothe the sadness. And I did it far too often, trying to fill a hole inside me. Once, I bought an abstract painting for nearly $1,200. I didn't understand modern art, and the painting didn't speak to me. But I bought it just because it was expensive, like the price tag could give it meaning. Like something luxurious could make me feel worthy. I spent money on lavish vacations alone to Napa Valley, Sedona, even Tuscany. I took beautiful pictures, posted them with cheerful captions, savoring every moment. But deep down I was counting the days to go home. Not because I missed it, but because no place ever really felt like I belonged. I didn't need a lot of money to live, but I used money to convince myself I was okay. And that was my quietest mistake. Because if you're not careful, you can trade the best years of your life just to buy silence for your soul with money, with things, with shiny distractions. And one day you wake up and realize you have a full closet and an empty heart. I usually got home after dark. The lights would turn on automatically, smart sensors all controlled from my phone. The kitchen was sleek, the living room tidy, the coffee machine ready and waiting for me. But there was no one there to ask how my day had been. The more money I made, the less I spoke to real people. Every relationship around me revolved around work, results, and performance. Close friends drifted away because I was always too busy. My family lived thousands of miles apart. And I, myself, was becoming a stranger to the person I used to be. I smiled at the right moments, spoke politely, and showed up polished in every meeting. But at night, lying in a pricey bed with crisp white sheets, I felt so empty it scared me. Not scared of not having enough money, not scared of losing my job, but scared that my entire life might pass by in silence, with no favorite songs playing, no paintings ever made, and not a single moment truly lived. People said, "You should be grateful." And I tried to be grateful. But this feeling wasn't about ingratitude. It was the sorrow of someone who used to dream, who once had fire in her heart, and slowly let it go out, little by little over decades. I remember being young when I wanted to be an artist, when I used to draw all night without sleep, when I believed art could heal. I remembered holding a charcoal pencil, my hands stained with color, my heart racing from a fresh idea. Now I held a pen just to sign off on lifeless contracts. Sometimes on sleepless nights I'd play old Miles Davis records and just sit in the quiet. No phone, no TV, just me and the silence. And in that silence I'd hear myself whisper, "Linda, what are you even doing?" It was a Friday night in mid-January. Snow was piling up on the rooftops and I was still at the office at 9 p.m. for the third time that week. A Zoom meeting had just ended, and I was completely drained, planning to swing by the 24/7 store for another microwave dinner. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my daughter Emily. "Hey Mom, I just walked past an art gallery in downtown Denver. There was this painting that reminded me of you. Remember when you used to draw those flower fields? Do you still paint?" I read her words again and again, and something caught in my chest. Not because of the question, but because I didn't know how to answer it. Me, the woman who once loved painting more than anything, hadn't made a real piece of art in over 20 years. That night, I didn't stop at the convenience store. I drove straight home, opened an old drawer and pulled out my faded sketchbook. Inside were hesitant, rough little drawings, but they were full of feeling. I picked up a pencil and tried to draw a flower field like the one Emily remembered. But my hand shook. I had forgotten how to draw. And right then I burst into tears. Not because I'd lost the skill, but because I realized I had lost the most important thing of all, myself. I had spent too many years playing the role of a successful woman, and forgotten the girl who used to dream by the window, sketching into the night. And I knew right then, if I didn't stop now, I would never live true to myself again. Just a few days later, I wrote my resignation letter. Not because I hated my job, but because I had come to love something else more. Something more real, more honest, and more worth living for. I submitted my resignation on a quiet Monday morning. No drama, no tears, no venting about my boss or burnout. Just one simple sentence. After 27 years in this field, I believe it's time to begin a new chapter. The one where I pursue what truly stirs my heart. At first, my manager thought I was just burned out and needed a break. HR offered a year-long sabbatical, but I was clear. I don't need a break. I need to leave so I can really live. To be honest, I was terrified. I was used to the safety of a steady paycheck, great health insurance, and a title people respected. But I also knew this. If I didn't have the courage to walk away from what I no longer loved, I'd never have space to welcome what I truly did. I moved to a small town near Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. A quiet place with tree-lined streets, charming vintage shops, and most importantly, room to breathe. With my savings and early retirement funds, I didn't need to worry about every dollar. But for the first time in my life, I didn't think of money as the goal. I saw it as a tool to build the life I wanted. I began painting again every morning. I started a blog to share my art and reflections. A few months later, I rented a small space and turned it into a café/gallery. A place where people could sip coffee, admire art, and have real conversations. I called it the second bloom, because I believe life doesn't just have one season of beauty. If we dare to begin again, we can still bloom even at 55. No more 6 a.m. alarms. No more back-to-back meetings. No more being everyone's go-to. No endless emails. No deadlines. First, I called it freedom. But after a few weeks, a strange anxiety crept in, like I was doing something wrong, like I was running away. I remember sitting for hours in my little art room, just staring at the empty easel. The ideas were there. The inspiration was there. But my hand wouldn't move. I was scared the first painting would be terrible. Scared I was too old to start again. Scared no one would care about the art of a 55-year-old former finance executive. And then the money fear crept in. Even though I had planned everything carefully, I had around $350,000 in savings, plus some retirement stock. I had calculated that if I lived simply, I wouldn't need to work full-time for at least 10 to 12 years. Still, every expense made me second-guess myself. I hesitated to buy higher-quality paint. I kept delaying renovations to the cafe. Every dollar I spent made me wonder, am I being reckless? Should I be saving more? What if this whole thing doesn't work out? Then the little cafe opened. And it wasn't nearly as busy as I had hoped. Some days, only 4 people stopped by, and 2 of them were curious neighbors. I made the coffee myself, cleaned the tables myself, introduced each painting on the walls myself. Sometimes I'd sit alone for hours, thinking about the lively meetings at my old job, and wonder, did I make a mistake? Everything was harder than I expected. Applying for a business license, learning how to manage an Instagram page, ordering supplies, finding good coffee beans. There was no accounting department, no assistant, no marketing team. Just me, my passion, and a fragile belief that I was on the right path. That Sunday morning was cool and quiet. Golden sunlight streamed through the cafe windows as I wiped down the tables. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, with messy red hair, tugged her mother's hand and walked in. Her eyes lit up as she looked at the paintings on the wall. Her mother ordered a cappuccino, but the girl stood frozen in front of a painting I'd created during a sleepless night. A woman sitting alone by a lake, her back to the viewer, tall reeds swaying around her in the breeze. I walked over and gently asked, "Do you like that painting?" She nodded, eyes still fixed on the canvas. "I think she's listening to the lake," she whispered. I froze. That was exactly what I had felt while painting it, but never said out loud. A child, without any art theory or fancy words, had understood the feeling I'd poured into it. Her mother turned to me and asked, "Do you sell this one?" I hesitated. It was one of the first pieces I'd painted after returning to art. A piece of my soul in many ways. But then I nodded. Yes, if it's found someone who truly sees it. They bought the painting for $200, not a big number, but it gave me something priceless. The belief that I was on the right track. Afterward, I hung a new piece in its place, this time, a peaceful lavender field. Within a week, someone asked to buy that one too. Then came little notes from customers. "I lost my mom to cancer. Your painting reminded me of her. I don't know why, but this place makes me feel lighter." And I realized that even without a big paycheck or a fancy office, I was still contributing something to the world. Something real. Something that came from the truest part of me. And that, to me, was worth more than any title I'd ever had. 1 year after leaving my job, I saw that this journey wasn't a race. It was a quiet walk, step by step, filled with self-discovery. Life was no longer about tense meetings or late nights at the office. Instead, I woke up each morning with a peace I had never known before. No more chasing achievements or checking emails every hour. Now I began each day by listening inward with a cup of coffee and a journal in hand, sketching out ideas for new paintings, or chatting with the people who came into the cafe. Every morning I unlocked the cafe door, breathed in the crisp air, and watched the autumn leaves fall to the ground. Small moments like that became powerful sources of inspiration. I began to fall in love with the simple things again. A quiet morning, a warm cup of tea, a heartfelt conversation with a stranger. I no longer felt swept up in the chaos of work or anxious about money. The biggest change was within me. I no longer felt the need to live to prove something. Instead, I learned to live for myself. The paintings I made weren't meant to sell. They were a way to express the deepest parts of who I was. Every canvas told a piece of my journey back to myself. Of course, there were days when I felt tired, when the cafe was empty, when a painting didn't sell. But I learned not to let those moments define my worth. My value wasn't tied to money or recognition anymore. It came from what I felt, what I created, and how I lived. The cafe became more than just a business. It became a part of my story. I started offering weekend art classes, where people could share their feelings through painting. What made me happiest wasn't the number of students, but the joy I saw when someone discovered their own creativity. I wasn't afraid of failure anymore. Instead, I saw each stumble as a lesson. And for me, the most important thing was that I was living true to my values. Not to meet others' expectations, but to fully embrace life. Making new friends isn't always easy, especially at 55. After spending decades in a world where relationships were measured by productivity and results. But as I stepped into this new life, I discovered something profound. Relationships aren't meant to be controlled or owned. They're meant to be shared and lived. At first, I worried I'd feel lonely in this small town. But I was wrong. The community here welcomed me with warmth. Even strangers helped create a sense of belonging. One of the people I grew closest to was Sarah, a 60-year-old woman who lived near the cafe. She had retired years ago and ran a charming little antique shop. We met when she stopped in one morning and said my paintings reminded her of her younger days, back when she too was an artist. After a short chat, we became friends. We started spending Sunday mornings together, sharing stories about our pasts, dreams that never came true, and the things we still wanted to do but had always been afraid to try. Those conversations helped me see life differently, not in terms of what I'd missed, but in terms of what I still had the power to create. From that, I began opening up more, not just to new friends but to the customers who came into the cafe. A single mom named Rebecca, a young woman named Julie, each brought their own story. And through them, I realized that real life is simply a series of human connections. People who truly see and share with one another. My new job has also given me the chance to meet people who are on a similar journey. I began to feel a sense of connection with those who shared my love for art, who had similar passions, and most importantly, who didn't measure your worth by the numbers in your bank account. I would sit with them in the mornings, sharing my own stories, not about success, but about the challenges I had faced and overcome. I no longer feared loneliness. Every encounter became an opportunity to connect, to discover what truly matters, not success, but those simple moments of sharing and understanding. A year has passed since I walked away from my old job, and I can feel the change within me. Life is no longer a monotonous cycle of repetition. It has become a journey of freedom, filled with new opportunities for creativity and connection. But more than anything, I've begun to truly understand who I am, and who I've become after all those hard-working years. I used to define my worth by my job and the achievements society recognized. A successful CFO, a woman with a modern, polished lifestyle. But once I let go of all that, I realized that my true value wasn't found in external things. It lived in what I felt and created from my heart. When I began painting again, I stopped fearing judgment. I no longer compared myself to famous artists. I realized that painting wasn't about praise, it was about expression. Each brushstroke, each color, was part of a self-discovery journey I had never dared to pursue before. The cafe wasn't just a way to earn a living, it became a space to share the values I had come to believe in. I wasn't just selling coffee or paintings, I was sharing the joy of living authentically. I no longer chased expectations. Instead, I lived by what I truly believed in. Customers became friends, and every conversation became a lesson about life, about experiences I'd never known before. I came to understand this. Happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. My life is no longer a frantic sprint to reach something out of grasp. It's a series of moments, free, peaceful, and meaningful. I no longer live in fear of losing something. Instead, I know I'm building a life that reflects who I truly am, where money is not the end goal. Living with passion is a life without regret. And when I look back, I realize I've truly found myself. I am no longer a CFO. I'm a painter, a cafe owner, a woman who found herself in her art, in every conversation, and in moments of true peace. Looking back on my journey, I realized that what I have today, a small cafe, a cozy home, and paintings on the wall, may not be the grand achievements I once dreamed of. But to me, they are real accomplishments. Proof that I chose to live a life guided by passion, even when it wasn't easy. There's a major lesson this journey has taught me. Money is a tool, not the purpose of life. I used to believe money was everything. I worked endlessly, stressed about the future, chasing what we call success. But when I gave up my high-paying job, I realized that happiness can't be bought. Freedom, creativity, and the feeling of being true to myself, those are priceless. I've also learned that change isn't something to fear, it's a chance to be reborn. Leaving my old job was a risky decision, but it led me to a life I never dared to imagine. The fear of instability, the anxiety about the unknown future, that's all behind me now. What matters most is that I dare to change and live life on my own terms. A third lesson, it's never too late to start over. Many people my age think it's too late to change, too late to follow their passion. But I want to tell them, it's never too late. In fact, age gives us wisdom and a deeper understanding of what truly matters. We may not be young anymore, but we can live with the clarity and peace that come with age. And finally, I've learned that happiness is connection. Not connection to work or possessions, but to the people around us. Conversations with customers, new friendships, or quiet mornings alone in the cafe, these are the priceless relationships I could never have found while stuck in the rat race. This journey has taught me that living authentically isn't always easy, but it's the only path to true peace and happiness. I no longer seek validation from others. I find fulfillment in what I create. And I hope that through my story, others will understand, happiness isn't a destination, it's a way of living. When I think about the future, I no longer feel pressure to achieve something big or chase goals society has laid out for me. The future to me isn't a checklist of accomplishments, it's an open space, full of possibilities where I can continue to grow and live honestly. One of the most important decisions I'm considering now is expanding the cafe. I want to turn it into more than a place for great coffee. I want it to be a space for artistic events, art shows, creative workshops, meetups for artists and the local community. I want to create an environment where people feel welcome to share their passions, whether it's art, music, or just the stories of everyday life. Alongside that, I want to keep growing as a painter. I've started participating in small local exhibitions, not to make money, but to challenge myself with new work. My paintings now aren't just images, they're stories. Stories of self-discovery, of the life I've lived, and of what I want to share with the world. I've realized that I don't need to do anything grand or complicated. I just need to keep living honestly, keep connecting with others who share the same vision and passion. Freedom isn't having everything, it's being able to live how you want and love what you do. I also want to inspire others my age or even older, who are still trapped by fear of change or anxiety about getting older. They need to know that change isn't an ending, it's the beginning of a new chapter. I want to build a community where people can support one another, share their stories, and grow through each other's experiences. Looking ahead, I no longer feel lost or afraid of what's to come. I've learned to accept myself, and that above all is the most important thing. Life is a long journey, and I want to keep moving forward step by step, with trust and peace in my heart. The future isn't something to predict. It's a path I get to choose each day. And I'll keep walking it, with hope in my heart and freedom in my steps. One of the things I've come to realize on this journey is that there's no finish line when it comes to freedom. When I gave up a stable job to live true to my passion, I didn't just open up a new world for myself, I opened space for those around me too. My life is no longer just about paintings or running a cafe. It's about the path I set out on the moment I chose to live life on my own terms. I still remember vividly how it felt standing at that crossroads, deciding to leave my old job behind. It wasn't an easy decision, but now, looking back, I know it was the turning point of my life. I chose to give up safety in exchange for freedom, the freedom to do what I love, and the freedom to simply be myself. Now I no longer worry about the future or fear the unknown. Instead, I embrace each day with gratitude and excitement. I know there will be challenges ahead, but I also know I'll find my way through them because I've learned to be resilient and to live by the values that matter most to me. One big change I'm considering is expanding my café. I want to create a space that's more than just a place for good coffee. I envision a cozy little hub where people can share stories, emotions, and ideas. A small community where connection is real and growth happens together. At the same time, I want to keep exploring art. Painting is no longer just a hobby, it's a vital part of who I am. Art has become a way for me to express my feelings, my thoughts, and the quiet truths that live deep inside. I want to keep experimenting, trying new styles, and above all, I want my art to inspire others. I've learned that life isn't a race. It's not about achieving more and more, it's about living fully with what you truly love. I don't fear change anymore. I welcome it as an opportunity to grow, to rediscover myself. And no matter what lies ahead, I believe every step of this journey holds meaning. Since choosing to live authentically, I've found a peace and joy I never knew before. And I believe that anyone who dares to live true to themselves will also find their own path, even if it's a difficult one. When I look back, I don't feel regret or sadness for the choices I've made. Leaving behind a high-paying job to follow my passion was the best decision of my life. I found peace in living honestly, and that peace has become an inseparable part of my journey. The past may still leave its marks, but I no longer let it dictate how I live today. Each new day is a fresh opportunity to love, to create, and to connect with the world around me. I no longer live under the weight of others' expectations. I've learned that this life is mine, and I have the right to shape it however I choose. To anyone standing at a crossroads in life, I want to say this. Don't be afraid of change. Don't let fear of the unknown keep you from your path. Remember, life isn't a destination you need to rush toward. It's a journey you create, one step at a time. And though it may be challenging, it's filled with wonder and moments that are truly priceless. I've come to understand that only when you live your own way can you truly be happy. Happiness doesn't come from having a lot of money, it comes from living in alignment with the values you believe in. Everyone has their own path, and you deserve to walk yours, even if it looks different from what others expect. When you find your passion, you don't need to do anything grand. Sometimes, all it takes is a little cafe, a few paintings, and meaningful relationships to build a life full of purpose. And then you'll see that happiness has been right beside you all along in the simplest of things. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm no longer afraid of it. All I know is I'll keep walking my path with faith in what I'm building and in the freedom I've chosen. And if there's someone out there, someone like I once was feeling lost and unsure of what to do next, I want them to know this. Don't be afraid to find your own way. Live for yourself. As I sit in my little cafe, gazing out the window, watching my customers chat and laugh, I feel a quiet, gentle kind of happiness surrounding me. Life isn't always about making giant leaps forward, but I've learned that every moment has its own meaning. The long, hard-working days are behind me. And now I'm living the life I truly want, not the one others expect from me. I don't have a lot of money, but I have everything I need. Freedom, creativity, and incredible people by my side. I'm no longer bound by distant, unreachable desires. I live simply, but each day feels whole and fulfilling in my heart. I know my journey isn't over. Each day, I'm learning something new about myself and the world around me. I hope my story can be a source of encouragement to anyone standing at a crossroads, anyone longing for change but still too afraid to take the first step. This life is yours. Don't let anyone or anything keep you from finding your way. And with that, I only have one last thing to say. Live true to yourself. That is the key to happiness. Don't fear change. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Only when you dare to live your own way can you truly discover joy. So I'll leave you here, not with goodbye, but simply a pause. The journey continues. And I'll keep walking it, with faith and a heart full of hope.